रामानुजदयापात्रं ज्ञानवैराग्यभूषणं श्रीमद्वेङ्कटनाथार्यं वन्दे वेदान्तदेशिकं लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भां नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां यो नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुग्मव्यामोहतस्तडितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये। माता पिता युवतयस्तनया विभूतिः सर्वं यदेव नियमेन मदन्वयानाम् आद्यस्य नः कुलपतेर् वकुलाभिरामं श्रीमत्तदङ्घ्रियुगळं प्रणमामि मूर्धना। भूतं सरश्च महदाह्वयभट्टनाथ श्रीभक्तिसार कुलशेखर योगिवाहान् भक्ताङ्घ्रिरेणु परकाल यतीन्द्रमिश्रान् श्रीमत्पराङ्कुशमुनिं प्रणतोऽस्मि नित्यम्। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत्। व्यासं वसिष्ठनप्तारं शक्तेः पौत्रम् अकल्मषं पराशरात्मजं वन्दे शुकतातं तपोनिधिं। व्यासाय विष्णुरूपाय व्यासरूपाय विष्णवे नमो वै ब्रह्मनिधये वासिष्ठाय नमो नमः। अचतुर्वदनोर्ब्रह्मा विबाहुरपरो हरिः अपाललोचनः शम्भुः भगवान् बादरायणः। पाराशर्यवचःसुधां सुमनसः दुग्धाब्धिमध्योद्धृतां संसाराग्निविदीपन व्यपगत प्राणात्मसञ्जीवनी पूर्वाचार्यसुरक्षितां बहुमतिं व्याघात दूरस्थिताम् आनीतां तु निजाक्षरैः सुमनसः भौमाः पिबन्त्वन्वहम्। योगोशतं कनकशृङ्गमयं ददाति विप्राय वेदविदुषेद बहुश्रुताय। पुण्यांश्च भारतकथां शृणुयांश्च नित्यं तुल्यं भवति तस्य चैव। नमः सदसे नमः सभाये। With the abundant blessings of Paramatma Shriyapati, we have gathered in the very premises of Sringeri SVDF. This is a 4-day lecture series. Day 1 and Day 2. We had the saubhagyam to discuss very briefly the essence of Adi Shankara's famed first composition called Kanakadhara, followed by Kanakadhara Stotram of 21 verses. We discussed 10 chosen shlokas from Acharya's Mohamudgaram, also popularly known as Bhajagovindam, on Day 2, which was yesterday. Today is Day 3. Tomorrow being Day 4, we will be discussing Bhagavad Gita. While talking about Gita, I have a very important announcement to make. Chinmaya Mission, Ann Arbor, is conducting lectures by Swami Swarupananda, who is the global head of Chinmaya Mission, between the 13th and 17th of August at Pioneer High School Auditorium, Ann Arbor. These are free talks. You're all invited to take part in these lecture series. Alongside, as mentioned at the Upodghatam by the Astikas of the Sannidhanam, this premises, that Astikas, your help and donations are very important to carry out dharmic activities. So please do donate generously, magnanimously towards all their dharmic efforts. Today being Day 3, we have chosen a topic from Sri Mahabharatham. Though we have not dealt with Ramayanam in this series specifically, if you remember, yesterday all the incidents were pertaining to the Ramayana. So though it was titled Bhajagovindam, the illustrations and the examples and the references were cited from the Ramayana, both Valmiki and largely Kamban. Today being Day 3, it is quickly followed up with Sri Mahabharatham. The original name of Mahabharata is Jaya. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. It's called Jaya. There are various explanations given to as to why it is Jaya. Jaya simply means victory. Jaya also transforms into the number 81. As per Katapayani Sankhya, when reversed, 81 becomes 18. Anything and everything which is very esoteric and extremely important in the Mahabharata has the number 18. Mahabharata comprises of 18 parvas. The Bhishma Parva has Bhagavad Gita embedded in it. And that Bhagavad Gita has 18 adhyayas. The number of days the Yuddham was fought was for 18. The number of regiments on both sides of the Dhartarashtras and the Pandavas put together was 11 plus 7, 18. So 18 Akshauhini Sainyam. In the 18 days Yuddham, with the first day having 18 chapters of the Gita and the entire work having 18 parvas, makes it 18 as a very commonly understood and referenced number. So, commonly referenced number is 18, which is Yaja. When you reverse it, it becomes Jaya. So, it is Jaya. Since it was fought on the Dharmakshetra Kurukshetra Bhumi by the descendants of Bharata, it is called Mahabharata. Some say it was fought for the very essence of Bharata Bhumi, so it is Mahabharata. So Sri Mahabharatam in very many ways has been the mammoth Grantham that we all have cherished. It is roughly 3.5 times the size of Iliad and Odyssey put together. It is 4.5 times the size of Paradise Lost and Gained of Milton put together. That big is the Grantham. And alongside the Grantham, another cherished portion of the Mahabharata is the Khila Bhagam called Harivamsha, which is red. So, it is called Sapadalaksha Grantham, a Grantha of close to 1,25,000 shlokas. And the beauty lies in the very fact that till about 40 years back, one Acharya of the Sri Vaishnava community in Kanchipuram, a Tatachar Swami, had memorized all the 1,25,000 shlokas. So do we appreciate the pen of Vyasa who composed, or do we appreciate the brain of the Tatachar Swami who lived in the 20th century, who retained the 1,25,000 shlokas? So probably he was the progenitor to Gemini, to Grok, and ask perplexity. He would retrieve the shlokas even without referring to the books and their pages. The reason for memorizing was multifold. One primary reason was Mahabharata is such a priceless an invaluable gem in the tiara that Bharata Mata holds very close to her heart. In that Sri Mahabharata, we have Pancha Ratnam, 5 Ratnas within the Mahabharata, which our Acharyas have cherished. All of them happen to be beautiful conversations that existed. The conversation that took place towards the end of the 3rd Parva called Vana Parva. The Upaparva was called Araneyaka Parva. And in that is a conversation in the form of questions 124 in number and answers given by Yudhishthira very peacefully in a calm fashion. Those questions and answers are a compendium called as Yaksha Prashnam. Second is a conversation that happened between Dhritarashtra and his wise brother. I am using wise for his brother, not for him. So, such questions which were posed by Dhritarashtra to his wise brother Vidura, That compendium is called Vidura Niti. Questions posed by Dhritarashtra to Sanat Sujata became Sanat Sujatiyam, a lesser known or a discussed work. Fourth is, of course, the famed conversation that happened between the one who had won over sleep. His name was Arjuna. Arjuna's name was Gudakeshaha. Gudaka means sleep. Only if we learn to win over sleep, we can acquire knowledge. How do we win over sleep? Eat less. Only when we eat, we sleep, right? That is why they insisted in Ayurveda, have food only once a day. Now, this conversation that struck happened between the one who won over sleep and the one who won over his senses. The one who won over his sleep was Arjuna, Gudakesha. The one who won over his senses was Hrishikesha. We should not get confused. Bhagavan Nama is not Rishikesha. It is Hrishikesha. Hrishikam means Indriyam. So the conversation that happened between Gudakesha and Hrishikesha is Bhagavad Gita, 700 verses, 18 chapters. The last of the 5 gems is again a conversation between Yudhishthira and his grand uncle father. So he was the Dumbledore of those days. So his name was Bhishmacharya. So this conversation that happened when Bhishma was on the bed of arrows, Sharatanpagato Bhishma, begins with a set of 6 questions. It's called Shatprashni. Kimekam Daivatam Loke, Kimbabhyekam Parayanam. 6 questions and answers, and subsequently he summarized the namas of Bhagavan, what he had learned and bequeathed from his Purvacharyas, which is popularly known as Vishnu Sahasranamam. So 5 Ratnas, the penultimate one was Bhagavad Gita, the ultimate one was Sahasranamam. These 2 together is what Acharya summarized yesterday at 8:50 p.m. Geyam Gita Nama Sahasram. In the due course of my rendition in the last 2 days, I inadvertently made a mistake of attributing Sri Sringeri Matha to Rigvedam. It is of Yajurvedam. Please make that correction. It is a mistake on my side. Kshamasva, Kshamasva. Now, in this Sri Mahabharatam, there are various Kathapatras. One point is, I told you about the 5 Ratnas within the Mahabharata. These 5 Ratnas possessing Mahabharata itself is associated with the number 5. It is called the 5th Veda. If you remember day 1, at about 8:45, while discussing the 19th and the 20th shloka, I told you about the prose and the poetic forms of the Vedas, discussing Vedatrayi. You remember? So, the excerpts of the 3 Vedas is what becomes the 4th, called Atharva or Atharvana Veda. There are only 4. But Bharatiya civilization, through Sanskritam and all the languages, is very exaggerating in nature. We are generally known to exaggerate things. We are known to make things very poetic, thereby bringing a lot of similes and metaphors. One such is the very quintessence of the 4 Vedas could be put together in a beautiful biographical form. If at all the Security Council gets together to name the 5th Veda, they will never get together. If at all they get together, the 5th Veda status should be given to Mahabharata, say all our rishis. Hence, Mahabharatam is known as the 5th Veda. When I say Vedas, there are only 4. If at all there is a 5th, it is Mahabharata. Bharata Panchamo Vedaha. So the fifth Veda status giving Mahabharata has 5 Ratnas in it. Now, our poets do not stop a Subhashitam in one place. In Srimad Ramayanam, Yuddhakandam, Gaganam, Gaganakaram, Sagaram, Sagaropamam. Valmiki has to describe how Rama and Ravana fought. He could have just said, well, Ram fought Ravan for over so many days. He could have said that. But he didn't say that. What did he say? Gaganam, Gaganakaram. If you look at the vast expanse of the sky, it will just, you can't fathom the ends of the sky. So Gaganam, if I have to describe how vast is the sky, Valmiki says you will never get the right example to compare that to. So how vast is the sky? The sky is as vast as the sky. Gaganam, Gaganakaram. Then he said, why should I keep looking upwards? I will look to the level where I can see. When he went to the seas, he saw them very vast. He couldn't see the other end. Now that I'm speaking in Michigan, I don't have to even talk about the seas. I have to just talk about your lake. You can't even check where the other end of the lake is. After having seen Vedacheri Lake, when you come here, you may get confused if it is a sea in itself. So you can't see the other end. When it is beyond what my realm of understanding is. He says, when I look at the sky, I say it is as vast as the sky. When I look at the oceans, I have to simply say that they are as vast as the ocean. Gaganam Gaganakaram, Sagaram Sagaropamam. Why did he have to give an irrelevant simile here? Because he has to describe Rama Ravana Yuddham. So looking at the fierceness with which Rama and Ravana fought on the Yuddha Bhumi of Lanka, he says the way Rama and Ravana fought is like how Rama and Ravana fought. Rama Ravana Yuddhorve, Rama Ravana Yoriva, he concludes. Similarly, the Subhashitam is, if at all there is a fifth Veda, it has to be accorded to Mahabharata because there are only 4. If there is the fifth, it has to be accorded to the Mahabharata. Like, prior to a marriage getting fixed and happening in one's household, be it for the daughter or the son, and incidentally, if that household has a concept called arranged marriage, if it happens in some remote corner of this mundane earth, then the parents too, I'm talking about 40-50 years back when there were large families. The parents, especially to the girl child, will be extremely worried as to if the daughter will get married or not. Seeking solace and solution both at the same time to this worry, the parents to the girl will visit the nearby temple if it has a Navagraha Sannidhi. They know that there could be some impediments in the marriage process caused by a few grahas who are extremely notorious for. So they may go on a pradakshinam around the 9 grahas to ward off any evil effects that could be the obstacle to the daughter's marriage. Incidentally, the daughter's marriage gets fixed and the son-in-law comes home. In the first few weeks, they would end up realizing that he is more troublesome than the 9 grahas. So the homecoming son-in-law is deemed as the 10th graha. So the Subhashitam is Bharata Panchamo Vedaha Jamata Dashamo Grahaha. Like the incoming Jamata son-in-law who is like the 10th graha is the Mahabharata, which is the 5th Veda. So in this, now you will remember. So in this Sri Mahabharatam that comprises of such beautiful shlokas composed and presented by Vyasa Bhagavan, he has given, I don't know, I've read the Mahabharata, but I can tell you with full confidence, I am not very confident of the Mahabharata, how many ever times I've read, because it is that vast. To remember is also tough. Ramayana is very neat and linear. You follow the path of Rama and Sita, Ramayana is done. You don't know whom to follow here in Mahabharata. There are 1,600 characters and with their names, each one distinct from the other. So, I will present whatever little I have managed to remember. Of the various Kathapatrams that Vyasa has presented, one Kathapatram that can just blow your minds away is Draupadi. There is no one whom I can think of in whatever little I have read, studied, researched or presented who can come to very close to this one character called Draupadi. She is very intriguing. She is one who makes us think, contemplate and to a large extent internalize. How does it begin? So I have to give you a context to it. In the Tamil language, in the colloquial Tamil language, if something that doesn't have an exact beginning or anything that requires a lot of explanation, so much so that there is a mesh that's caught in its explanation, people often compare that to Mahabharata. They would state, Adiyat Todida Bharada Bhatta. You wouldn't know where to begin. Literally, I am in that fix now. So I will begin somewhere, you follow me. There is one Rishi called Gautama. Now please don't think this is the Gautama of Ramayana, forget that. He is Gautama 2.0. Now this Gautama had a relationship with an Apsara Stree called Janapadi. Janapadi and Gautama had twins, one girl, one boy. The girl was called Kripi. The boy was called Kripa. Kripi, Kripa. They have eased my process. Imagine they had called their son Bhuta Bhavya Bhavat Prabhu or Aparyaptamrita or Sarva Praharana Yudha. He made it very easy for me. Kripa, Kripi. Alongside there was another Rishi called Bharadwaja Maharishi. Bharadwaja had a relationship with an Apsara Stree called Ghritachi. They had a child, son. This son was given the name, was assigned that name, which was related to his birth. How do we know that? For example, Sita was born in Mithila, so she is Maithili. Of Janaka, Janaki. In Videha, Vaidehi. Born as a result of the furrow created by a plow. So Sita. These are the names. This child, boy, who was born to the couple of Bharadwaja and Ghritachi, was to a large extent observed and grown in a vessel without sounding very archaic or sounding extremely illogical or forcefully inserting science. I can roundabout say that this is very akin to a process that we have all been known in the last 20-30 years, which is in vitro. Because the fertilization happens outside the human body, and when it is found healthy enough, then it is implanted to the mother. That is what it is. So in vitro in itself has one derivation called a Petri dish. It happens in the lab. So this boy must have been found in a vessel. A measuring vessel is called Dronam. Since he was born as a result of it. He was called Drona. So Bharadwaja and Ghridachi's son was Drona. Gautama and Janapadi's daughter was Kripi. Kripi and Drona were married. You have remembered 5 character names I've told you now. Then I will ask you at about 8:15, I will ask, remember. Now, this Bharadwaja's son Drona and the son of the king who ruled Panchala Desha, his name was Drupada. Drupada and Bharadwaja's son Drona were around about the same age. So when the Kshatriya Raja left his son Drupada to the tutelage and the guardianship of Bharadwaja, Bharadwaja thought, मेरा बेटा भी पढ़ रहा है, दोनों एक साथ A section में पढ़ सकते हैं. So Drupada and Drona became benchmates. So they used to take the compass and scratch the bench. They were such buddies, compass buddies. In that process, as little children would speak, though Drupada was under the tutelage of Bharadwaja and lived a very simple life, he knew later he will become the Yuvaraja. That was given. Kshatriyas, they will later become the king. In Chennai also we follow that. We know if his son has organized a car race, we know next he will become a minister. So this boy, Drupada, said as a little boy to his compass buddy, Drona, when I become the king, my dear friend Drona, I will give you half my kingdom. He told as a little boy. Little did Drona realized that this was an election manifesto, which means it will never happen. Eventually, Drona married Kripi and they had a son. Ashvasyevasya yatsthaman adataha pradishogatam ashvathamaiva baloyam tasman namna bhavishyati. This boy, the cry of this little boy was akin to the name of a horse. Since his cry resembled the name of a horse, he was called Ashwathama. Incidentally, when you go to Kanchipuram, I have told this in few lectures of mine. If you go to Kanchipuram and if you have little time that you can spare after visiting Babu Shah, Varamahalakshmi, Hayagriva, Varadarams, after all this, if you have little time for temples, please do visit a temple which is under the jurisdiction and care of the Archaeological Survey of India, ASI. It is a 7th-8th century temple, roughly 1300 years back, constructed by a Pallava king. And that temple, incidentally, is one among the 108 Divyadeshams venerated by the Alvars. This temple venerated by a great valorous Alvar called Thirumangai Alvar. This has been referred to as Paramechura Vinnagaram in Tamil. Vinnagaram, Vin means heaven. Vyomapuri is called Vinnagaram. It is called Paramechura Vinnagaram. In Sanskritam, Parameshwara Vinnagaram. This was constructed in the 7th-8th century. You know, normally the way Narayana dresses up, he will be extremely handsome here. This is one of the first skyscraper temples of the 7th century. It's called Ashtanga Vimanam. So there will be 3 levels in the Garbhagriha. First level, second, third. The same Bhagavan will be in 3 postures: reclining, standing, sitting. It is called Ashtanga Vimanam. This is in pure granite when no cement existed. So it is constructed like a building block puzzle. And there are thin steps that lead you to the next two steps. When I say thin, we'll have to do 10,000 steps every day to walk by those steps because they are very thin. I can't go. Now you can understand. So this is Ashtanga Vimanam. This is a west-facing temple, Ashtanga Vimanam of the 8th century. West-facing Ashtanga Vimanam, Vishnu temple of the 8th century. The only other west-facing Ashtanga Vimanam Vishnu temple outside India, inside India this is, outside India is Angkor Wat. Angkor Wat is a 12th century west-facing Ashtanga Vimanam of Vishnu. It's called Parama Vishnu Loka. When you visit this temple of Kanchi, I told you, after Babusha, when you do pradakshinam of this temple, on the walls you will see beautiful sculpted stone motifs. Each panel giving you a story. One panel from the left will have a vessel and a child. The vessel is Drona, the vessel, and the child is Drona. The next panel will have a child and a horse, Ashwathama. The next panel will have another child born near a creeper. Hence he is the first Pallava. So Pallavas who ruled Kanchi and Mamallapuram were treated as the descendants of Ashwathama. If you go to this temple, you will see that, observe that. Now, this Drupada Maharaja became a Raja. On the other hand, we had Drona. Drona married Kriti and he had Ashwathama. Ashwathama was only son. In those days, it was very unusual. You stopped your family with one child. But Drona wanted to be that unique person. He stopped with one. This boy was playing with his other friends on the playground. So in that short break, I don't know if you have those things here in schools. In Bharat we have short break, long break. So in short break, they all had to drink some energy drink. So the other children's parents had sent A2 grass-fed organic milk. So they were all having milk. Ashwathama also had a jar. He opened that milk. The other boys noticed, "Ye kya hai, Ashwathama?" So he said, "Kripi ji ne beja hai." Then they looked at the viscosity of the liquid that was present and they said, "This is not milk. This is there. Whatever I am saying is there. A2 is not there." A2 na hai, A2 na hai. So, Villiputtura, in Telugu Bhasha, there is an Andhra Mahabharatham. Nannaya started writing it. Kada, Telugu was Telisa. But he didn't do the entire Mahabharatam. 3 Kavis did that in installments. Installment 1, 2, 3, because it is too big. In the Tamil language, one person did the entire work. He is called Villiputturar. Avin paal arindilai polum, Avin paal arindan polum. Ma means flour. Mabu we say, right? So if you bring little water to it and make it into a liquid, it will seem like milk. So they were so much drenched in destitution. Because why did they were in destitution? Because they didn't recite Kanakadara. So they had flour milk. So these boys said, "This is not Avinpal. This is not cow's milk. This is Mavinpal. Avinpal arindinal polu, Mavinpal arindan." So they said, "Kya hai Ashwathama? You are assuming this is milk. Your parents have been cheating you." So this boy was depressed and he went and told his father, "I am your only son. And you are not able to afford simple A2 milk for me." Father, for Drona, his biggest weakness was his son. If the boy, even because of pollen allergy, if he sheds tears, he will start crying. The boy really doesn't have to cry. Even if eyes turn dark because of the pollen, the father will start crying. He was so attached to his son. This will cost him his life. Over-attachment to children will cost. So, he was extremely fond of his son. What was his strength when we do this, what is it, SWOT analysis? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Weakness was son. Strength was he will never get tired. Drona will never get tired. Who will generally get tired? People who listen to Upanyasams. So you see, after 2 hours when people get up, I'm going to start singing. Just looking at one person for over 2 hours. So listening itself is tired. But he never will get tired. Strength was not getting tired, no fatigue. Weakness was son. Threat was if he listens to the word Ashwatthama. Krishna optimized these constraints and thus asked Bhima to kill an elephant called Ashwatthama. See, it's a very strategic move that Krishna does. If you have to finally discuss Mahabharatham strategy, that itself will take 1 week. How each of their strengths were neutralized. It's a beautiful process. Now, when he saw his son shed tears, the father couldn't stand. Then he remembered that his dear friend Draupadi had promised half the kingdom. So he went to Draupadi's court, Sabha, and said, Draupadi, Draupadi said, who are you, mister? Main, Drone ho. You remember we were compass buddies? You remember? Draupadi said, Nagari Drova Sumatova. I am the rich man and you are a poor man drenched in destitution. How can a man who's poor in his status be friends with the one who's rich? Na daridro vasumatova. Na vidwan avidwan vidushasakha. How can a man who's bereft of any qualifications be friends with a person who's extremely educated? Nashurasya sakha klibaha. How can a coward who runs from the battlefield be friends with the one who's a repository of prowess? Sakhi purvam kimishyate. On what grounds do you even have the audacity to come to my sabha and say that you are my friend? Before all others, he humiliated Drona. Drona said, Baad mein dekhi. And he left him. He wanted to somehow bless his son Ashwatthama with whatever he had asked. What will he do? That is when there was an ad. Teacher required. Job to chahiye na? He wanted some work. Now let's shift our focus to Hastinapura. That's why I said Mahabharata is you have to discuss that in installments. In Hastinapura was an administrator who people would not know what decision he will take on that day. Such an administrator existed then. So what he will speak, nobody will know. So one such person who was blinded since birth was called Dhritarashtra. This Dhritarashtra had a wife called Gandhari. She was from Gandhara Desha, which is Kandahar. Again, Afghanistan region. Yesterday we had that discussion about that lady. What was her name? Kai. So India had a long history of a daughter-in-law from another country. So just that it went till Europe in the recent past. Now, this Gandhari and Dhritarashtra had 100 sons. 100. Most of them were useless. They had one daughter called Dushala. Dushala's husband belonged to Sindhu Sauvira Pradesha, current day Karachi. Jayadratha belonged to that region. Now, while his wife was pregnant, see, I told you Mahabharata is very vast. I'm just giving you some snippets. While his wife was pregnant, this king had a relationship with a maid. Through that relationship, there was a son born called Yuyutsu. So 100 plus 1 plus 1, 102 children. Alongside his younger brother Pandu had 2 wives. The first was called Kunti through Dharmaraja, Vayu and Indra's Anugraha. She had Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna. On the other hand, her co-wife, Pandu's other wife called Madri of Madradesha, had 2 sons as twins born as a result of Ashwini Kumaras. They were called Nakula and Sahadeva. 3 plus 2, 5. So that is why in the colloquial Tamil language, if one is destined to suffer or die, people say it doesn't matter whether you are in that 100 or in the 6. Arilum savu, Noorilum savu. They say, right? Whether you are in that 100 or 6, if you are destined to die, you will die. So, when Pandu died very early, there's a, see again I'm not getting too much into that history because that will drag me on another side. Pandu died. Along with that, Madri also died. So these 3 plus 2, 5 children were left to the custody of Kunti. Kunti, the widow, the mother, she came back to Hastinapura with the 5 children. So now Dhritarashtra had 100 plus 1 plus 1 plus 5, 107 children. He was not worried where to put them, in which school to put, because they were the school. They didn't have to go to school. There were already 4 sections here, section A, B, C, D. The only thing that was missing in that school was a teacher. And Dhritarashtra, the pinnacle of being foolish, was him. So he was not really concerned about getting an adept teacher to his school. He restored this duty on Bhishma. Bhishma was hunting for a teacher. No teacher, looking at the class size, 107, no teacher agreed to come. Though there were very good benefits, nobody was ready to come. They were hunting for a teacher. On the other side, Drona was hunting for a job. How did this meeting happen? There is an incident mentioned in the Adi Parva when the sons of Kuru, Kauravas means all these people. Kauravas doesn't mean only 100. Kuru Vamshe Jataha, Kauravaha means all these people. While they were playing, the Kandukam fell into a deep well. None of them had mastered swimming. So they were utterly confused how to get the Kandukam, the ball, out. They saw one man with a long beard walking by that way. They said, Mama, please get this ball for us. They thought the Mama will jump into the waters, drench himself, then give the ball. This Mama had a new technique. He was carrying a bunch of grass. He rubbed the grass, one blade of grass, uttered a mantra and dropped that into the well, and the tip of the grass touched the periphery of the ball and stood erect. Very akin to the magnetic force that will come to certain wood-based materials when rubbed against anything that is a lubricant. Remember, you have to rub your scale against the head. If your head has coconut oil, and that too loads of it. So, and then bring pieces of paper that will get attracted. So this blade of grass struck to the periphery. The next blade of grass stuck to the blade of grass. So, inadvertently, a beautiful rope was formed and he pulled the ball out of the well waters and he gave it to the boys. This should have caused an element of astonishment in the boys. But most of them, they least bothered and they left. They said, thank you, Mama, and they left. One boy who took notice of this went running to Bhishma and said, "You were hunting for a teacher, I have found one." That boy was Arjuna. He spotted the teacher. When he narrated all that happened in that region, Bhishma said, "This must be nobody else but Bharadwaja Putra Drona." So Drona was recruited as the new teacher. So he was said, "You will be given one quarters, you have to stay electricity free, groceries will come from Costco, few other materials will come from Patel's, it will all come, don't worry." That is when he requested, "I now request you," Drona said, because this was a Kuruvamsha only school. It was a minority institution. Others cannot join. So that is when the dear father in him requested, "Let these boys study under me. One small exception, let my son also study with them." So Ashwathama came in acquaintance with the sons of both Dhritarashtra and Pandu. So now it became 108, correct? 107 plus 1, 108. Sindhujata kalashi bhuvostayoho snigdha bhavam avalokyata drishat tatra paura nikaras samacharam chitra pura jathare nimajjanam, says a Kavi called Ananta Kavi from a work called Bharata Champu. Champu is a combination of Padyam and Gadyam. In Ramayana there is a Champu. Who has written that? Ramayana Champu. Yep. We have come very close. Who wrote Ramayana Champu? It is very famous. Bhojaraja. Bhoja's Ramayana Champu and Ananta Kavi's Bharata Champu. Very famous. There is one Champu written in 400 years back by a poet in Kanchipuram called Vishwagunadarsha Champu by Venkatadvari Kavi. So he says there, now Drupada became the Acharya for all these students. I'll just give you an incident to just tell you how great the student was. Though Drona was a good teacher, when you have your own child in that class, there is a small disadvantage. That is why generally advisable that parents, even if you are good musicians, you should put your child to somebody else. What did Drona do? He will want to teach some extra lessons to his son, Ashwathama. But if he does it before all the other boys, they'll say, cheating, cheating. You know what he did? Adi Parva says, he would give a pot to all the boys and tell them, go fetch the lake waters. They will all go running. He will record 0, 0, 0, 0. It will roughly take 12 minutes on an average for somebody to return with the water. Some may take 14, some may take 11. This was the average. But those pots were uniquely designed. It would have a long neck and a bottom, large bottom. So if you put that into the waters of the lake, the time taken to displace the air and for the water to come will be more, vis-a-vis a pot that has a broad mouth. That one pot with a thin, shorter neck and a broader mouth would be given to Ashwathama. This is there in the Adi Parva. So Ashwathama will just take 7 minutes to come. So between that 7 and 12, he will get those 5 minutes, right? Extra lessons. I don't know if you remember in school days, if the teacher while teaching says this is important, then we will put one cross, 4 dots, and one circle. That means surely this question will come in that exam. Have you done that? So, this is how he used to do. But to his surprise, that is where Vyasa becomes the hero. When Ashwathama would come running saying, Pita, Arjuna would also run. Drona asked, how did you come? That is when Arjuna told, this is there in the Adi Parva, I didn't go to the lake at all. I learnt a few mantras from the manuscripts. One was Varuna Mantram. In this place itself, I used Varuna Mantram to fill the waters. You wanted waters, that's all, right? That is when Drona thinks, how many other obstacles you put to the talented person, he will surely rise. Arjuna was that. In India, we call him Action King. Arjuna, gentleman. So, now all these boys learned. Towards the end of the tutelage, they asked, Sir, can you give your account details? We'll sell it to you. See, send money to donate at svbfnorth.org. Note that down now. That is the Zelle account there. But Drona said, you don't need to sell me. नहीं, कुछ तो मांगिए ना. गुरु दक्षिणा तो देना ही चाहिए. ये अवश्य है, ये अनिवार्य है. गुरुजी, आप बता दीजिए तो. That is when Guruji said, I don't want money. Bring me Drupada. You remember? 17 minutes back, we were discussing Nagariklo, Vasumato, Vanavidwan, Vidushas Saka, Saki Purvam Kimishyate. He left that assembly. Now he said, that man who has humiliated me should be chained and be dragged in front of me. Go bring him. And the student said, "Theek hai Guruji, hum jate hain." This is where Duryodhana says, ego. These Pandavas don't have to join us. We are 100. We will go. He left. They went to fight Drupada. Drupada arrested all of them. Now there was an additional responsibility for the Pandavas. Besides releasing these 100, then they have to bring that Drupada. Now Drona asked, my dear Pandavas, you are only 5 in number. How will you manage? That is when they said 5 are enough. We don't need a big battalion. We will go. Vyasa describes this. It was a Ratham where the Rathi was Yudhishthira. The bodyguard, bouncer, was Arjuna. The protectors of the wheels were Nakula and Sahadeva. The protector too, the 4 horses walking in the front was Bhima. Bhima walked in the front, followed by the horses, accompanied by Nakula Sahadeva on the sides protecting the wheels. Protecting Yudhishthira, the Rathi, was Arjuna. They went. Drupada thought, ये क्या है, इतना छोटा तो आदमी है, कोई भी नहीं. The moment Arjuna started fighting, Drupada was amazed. It looked as if an entire army was fighting him. Because Arjuna was that kind of a warrior. Sabyasachi, ambidextrous. He could use 2 bows at the same time. If you stitch with both hands, you are Sabyasachi. If you shoot, then you are Sabyasachi. So he shot. At one point, Arjuna jumped from his chariot onto the chariot of Drupada, took the sword from his scabbard, pulled Drupada, took the sword near Drupada's neck and said, Sir, I will not kill you. You are my Acharya's close friend. I need to respect you. I will not chain you. Please come respectfully with us and present yourself to my Acharya. That moment, Mahabharata states that Drupada thought for a second, I wish I had a daughter whose husband will be this man. For a second he thought. He was pulled before Drona. Drona said, Ye kaun hai? Hello Drupad, tum kaise ho? I'm very sad to inform you, Drupada, that your entire Panchala Desham is mine. But I don't wish to see you as a destitute. So that entire kingdom of yours which is mine, half of it, I will give it to you now. You rule one half of it. Let that capital be Kampilya. Jao, abhi jao. ठीक है, बाद में मिलेंगे. Stay in touch, okay? Now Drupada developed vengeance. I should have a son who will kill him. Full of vengeance. This man wants to kill him. So this Drupada goes to two rishis called Yaja and Upayaja. This Yaja refuses. He says, I will not do these kind of yajnas where you want a son who can kill the other man. The objective itself is not noble. He refused. He said, मैं ऐसा कुछ नहीं करूँगा, बाद में. He went to Yaja's younger brother called Upayaja. Upayaja said, generally I don't do, but if you give me little more. This Upayaja's descendants drive many vehicles in Chennai. கொஞ்சம் மேல போட்டு கொடுங்கோ, மேல போட்டு கொடுங்கோ is what Upayaja said. You give something extra, I will do. Upayaja conducted a yajna. At the start of the yajna, like how in a program you give an input statement, scanf, you have to give an input statement, right? So the input statement was, whatever the karta, here karta is the one who does the yagam. So the karta is Drupada. Whatever the karta has desired should fructify. Openly what did Drupada said? I want a son who can vanquish Drona. The yajna was conducted. That is when, towards the end of it, the charu was kept. Charu is the yajna prasada. Drupada's wife was called. आपकी wife को बुलाओ ना. He called his wife. She was busy somewhere. She didn't come. That is when the Rishi said, I will put the charu into the yajna because I have got 2 other appointments. I cannot wait for your wife to come. He poured the charu into the yajna, and this is where something that we cannot logically explain but is beyond what we can fathom, is from the blazing fire of that yajna arose a Purusha, resplendent with beautiful jewelry that looked as if the suns were smelted together. He carried weapons that were fierce and sharp, with eyes that emanated valor and krodham. His name was Drishtadyumna. Jwala varno ghora rupaha kiriti varmachottamam bibratsa khadga sasharo dhanushman vinadanmuhu Drishtadyumna kumaroyam drupadasya bhavatviti. Beta aa gaya. So that is when he said, Upayaji, बहुत धन्यवाद, आपको सभी पैसा वापस अकाउंट में आ जाएगा, आप एक बार मैसेज चेक कर लीजिए, धन्यवाद, मैं आपका शुक्रगुजार हूं. But that Agni had not yet gone, it was still blazing. They were all surprised. क्या है? हो गया ना यज्ञ? That is when they remembered the input statement was whatever the karta has desired. He openly desired a son, but about 4 minutes back he desired a daughter, right? That is when she emanated. Kumari chapi panchali Vedi madhyat samuthitat Shubhaga darshaniyangi Swastitaya chalochanaha Shyama padmapala sakshi Neela kunjita mudhaja Tamra tunganakhi subhru Charupina vayodhara. Kumari cha api panchali of Panchala Desha Vedi, from the Vedika, Madhyat Samuttita. How was she? Extremely pleasing to look. Shubhaga, very charming. Darshaniyangi. How were her eyes? Swastita. Lochana. Long, large eyes. How was her complexion? Shyama, dark color, absolutely dark. This is where you need to understand the family conversations. That press on that pull decides the shade of that black. I don't know. ಅದು ನೀವು ಅನುವಾದ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಕನ್ನಡ ಭಾಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋರು ಅನುವಾದ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು ದ್ರವಿಡ ಭಾಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕಪ್ಪಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಆ ಕೊನೆ ಅಕ್ಷರನ್ನ ಎಷ್ಟು ನೀವು ಉಚ್ಚಾರಣೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರೋ ఆ ఉచ్చారణకి ఇరో హ్యూ. తెలుగు భాషలో మీరు అనువాదం చేయండి, అర్థమైంది కదా? సో శ్యామ. This is where we need to understand Indian civilization. The heroes and heroines of all our novels will be dark. Rama, Krishna, Draupadi. Fair people should wage a war. They said it is anti-fair. Samudrika Lakshana Shastram has one adhyaya on jewelry. It has one shloka. It says only dark-hued people should buy gold. Fair people should not sport gold, it seems. There's one rule. That is why if you go to Usman Road, all mannequins will be dark, sporting that gold. Shyama Padmapala Shakshi. How was her hair? Neela Kunjita Mudhaja. Curly hair. From the background, if you add light, you could see streaks of blue. Neela Kunjita Murdhaja. Murdhaja means hair. Tamra Tunganakhi Subru. Her nails were like tamra, copper. Charupina Payodhara. She walked out of the fire, the daughter of Yajnasena, known as Yajnaseni Panchali. That is when the father accepted her as a daughter. What was her name? Krishnetye Babhruvan Krishnam Krishnabhut Sahivarnataha. The dark one was called the dark one. Her name was Krishna. Technically, if you have a son, you should not extend that A. Krishna. Krishna! Draupadi varanam. Because it becomes Trilingam. Krishna. Now, when she emerged out of that fire, that day, the father arranged Sairandrika strings, hairdressers, green trends and naturals. He said, please dress her up. All jewelry was presented. It was procured. And it was presented. Now, Ananta Kavi says, the lady who was dressing her up dressed her with a beautiful netti chutti. You know netti chutti? See, I have to translate this. I don't know in English what is it called. What is netti chutti? English में क्या बोलते हैं? You're all experts, right? That is why remember certain words are non-translatables. It is a long string. It will be roughly of 10 to 11 grams, and then there will be a huge one studded with gems. It's called netti chutti. Then earrings with some strings that pull it up. It is called mattal. Tungi pedapradinga thooki pedapra. So all this they adorned Draupadi with. As they kept adorning her, came the girdle, Mekhala, Kanchi, Uddiyanam. While the ladies took and had to place it, they said, "Kidhar gaya hip?" Hip was missing. She was so thin in her Madhyama Bhagam that people couldn't spot it. They said, "Tumhe dikh raha hai kya? Mujhe nahi dikhai de raha hai. Kahan hai hip, 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 hip?" That is when they said, see, we have so many other jewelry materials that need to be fitted. We should not waste our time in this. One lady said, generally in Brahma Srishti, hip is in the middle of the body. Let us place it somewhere. it will adjust by itself. Sakalamapi vapu vibhushyatam yah sabari sakhi vipulekshana bhujapi chirataramanavekshya madhya desham karadhrita kanchana kanchi revatasthav. So pretty, thin hip. Now, there is another shloka that describes that. Women around her, they were all holding different saris, it seems. One was holding paithani, one muga, one dhaka, one benarasi, one kani, one kachi, one maheshwari, one kesaisi, one Kerala kasavu, one dharasura, one tribhuvanam, one Arani, one Kanchi, one Mangalagiri, one Venkatagiri, one Patola, and so these are all the saris the ladies were holding. They were all holding like this. Now Draupadi could go around and check. What they do na? She could choose. They were multi-colored, multi-textiled saris. The poet says that she was adorned with a girdle. You remember a minute back she was adorned. And the girdle had uncut diamonds. Uncut diamonds will have surface that reflect like mirrors. Similar to that is what in Rajasthani area we call kundan. So those uncut diamonds were found on the girdle. Women were standing around her holding different saris. The multicolored reflections were falling on the mirror-like uncut diamonds. So for a minute, her girdle appeared like a kaleidoscope because it was multicolored. And those uncut diamonds had those saris because the Paithani saris reflection is coming in this. Mugas is here. So many saris she had here. The poet says, the moment Draupadi realized that so many saris were being reflected onto her girdle, she covered them up tightly because she knew she will require all these saris one day. This is a poetic beauty. Kanchi kalapa mani bimbita parshvayoshi kausheya pantiravanimbra suta bhavase avir bhavishya dadhigoshti katini magnam vasashatam janadrishami vasuchayanti. That said, the father, Drupada, was worried. Oh, I have to arrange Swayamvara for my daughter. For Draupadi, it was a very quick life. She was born 2 days back. Marriage is going to get fixed. He didn't have to think whether she's going to join the magnet program or what is she going to take, advanced level, nothing yet. That's all. 2 days marriage. So there was a Swayamvaram arranged. It was a very tough, tricky Swayamvaram. The Swayamvaram was, there will be a disc like this at the top. There will be one fish attached. And that will be a fish which is attached to a revolving disc. So essentially the head of the fish with its eye will not be at the center. It will keep going. So there were 5 arrows kept with a bow. And the person whoever is the Kshatriya who has to win over Draupadi has to hit at the eye of the fish. Has to hit at the eye of the fish without asking for more arrows or attempts, exactly in one shot by looking at the reflection of the fish in the waters below. No mama will get married. Who will get married like this? Peenadi, kannadi. Nama mama cataract loka. So, our mama, if he takes one luggage out of the conveyor belt, L3 problem comes. Weak mama, the kannadi. So, various kings were invited. They all reached Kampilya Desha. That point in time, again I am not going into the flashback, the Pandavas were supposedly dead. because they were told, it was declared that they were dead in the Lakshagraham. But they had escaped because of Vidura, Prajnaha, Prajna Pralapadyaha. So, as they had escaped, from Ekachakra Nagaram, when they had to flee because of the death of an Asura called Baka, because of Bhima, they left Ekachakra Nagaram. They had to pass by Kampilya where this Swayamvara was happening. They received 5 tickets to be in the gallery. So they got 5 tickets, IPL tickets they got. So they went. Guests of honor for the Swayamvaram of Draupadi, Krishna, was Krishna and Balarama. They had come from Dwaraka. Krishna and Balarama were seated, Drupada was seated, Drishtadyumna was seated, Draupadi was ready with that Pondi Bazaar mala. I don't know, in your city you get Vivek flowers, sir. So Vivek flowers, she was there with that mala ready. Now all of them tried. I'm not getting into the details. Duryodhana tried, Karna tried, Dushasana tried. Some were partially successful, some were non-successful. Nobody was fully successful. Finally, when nobody won this particular contest, Drupada said, now I open this up for the Brahmanas as well. Kshatriyas were not able to do it, Brahmanas tried. That is when these Kshatriyas were in the disguise of Brahmanas. Then Yudhishthira said, Amara turn aa gaya, Arjun tum jao. So Arjuna said, okay, it is a contest, right? He didn't know what will be the repercussions. So he went. So he left. I think you can switch off this particular mic. You have switched it off? So he left. And Arjuna reached that place where the bow and the arrow was kept. Now look at Arjuna's demeanor. He doesn't lift it immediately. Arjuno dhanushodhyashe tasthau giririvachalaha sattad dhanuhu parikramya pradakshinamata karot. He did a pradakshina around the bow and arrow. First he respected his job, the tools. So every day when we go, we should do one pradakshina around Apple laptop. That gives us work, right? Pranamya shirasa devam ishanam varadam prabhum krishnam cha manasa kritva jagrihe cha arjuno dhanuhu. He thought of Krishna in his mind and lifted the bow. That's all. Remember, till now Arjuna and Krishna have never met. In the Charitram, though they are cousins, one is the aunt's son, the other one is the uncle's son. Kunti's brother was Vasudeva. Vasudeva's son was Krishna. Kunti's son was Arjuna. Attan. Atta Pillayono. Attan. So this is the relationship. But they have never met each other. But they know of each other. Krishna was super famous. All through the first page, only Krishna's news will come. Krishna did this, Krishna did that. Krishna was very popular. So Krishnam cha manasa kritva. Arjuna thought of Krishna and lifted. Now on the other hand, Balarama said, Krishna, I just wish our cousins were alive. It would have been so great to see Arjun come and lift the bow. Krishna said, do you know who's lifting? Some mama. Arjun. Ye Arjun hai kya? You watch him like this without the jata and the beard. हाँ ये अर्जुन है कृष्ण. तुम्हें कैसे पता? Don't keep asking the same question Balarama. तुम्हें कैसे पता? तुम्हें कैसे पता? मुझे पता नहीं होगा तो किसको पता? So Krishna, Arjuna lifted the bow. This was all very easy. He had already done many practice sessions in this in his childhood. He fit the arrow. He calculated the speed at which because when you have to calculate the speed, there is a disc. It's two-dimensional. Then you'll have to assume an imaginary line coming till the mid-tip. Then only you can create an inverted cone. Then you have to calculate the height and the radius. Then you check what is the speed at which it goes clockwise or anti-clockwise. Then you draw the hypotenuse. and then check the angle and then shoot it. Simple. So Arjuna calculated. He shot the arrow, that's all. Everybody was happy. Drupada, ha. Otherwise, then the Swayamvaram cost will be a waste. So he said, Arjun. He didn't know it was Arjun. So he said, Draupadi, shadi kar lo, mala dalo. The dalo was over. Then Draupadi went with this Brahmana home. This is where her problem begins. The moment she reaches that ashrama, Arjuna could have said, Dekhiye kaun aaya hai? He didn't say that. Whatever bhogya vastu that I have got in Diksha Mata, what should I do? Like every day, she's a social media person, Kunti, she said, share. Share karo. Then when she turned, she noticed there was one lady in flesh and blood. Arjun, how dare you call a woman as a possession? Mummy, I was just joking. Jokes apart. Our beti. That is when our rule master came, Yudhishthira. He said, as per Article 54F and 94B, whatever the mother says, whether she says it seriously or jokingly, has to be exemplified. You said share, we have to share. Draupadi said, whom are you going to share? You. Me. How is it possible? That is when they were all in a fix. She said, I was born only 4 days back. Look, my problems have begun on the 5th day. Ye kya hai life? Inge sellum in the vaalkai yaro yaar arivaru. What is this? That is when Krishna comes. For the first time, Vasudeva Krishna comes into picture. He comes to that hermitage. And he pays his obeisances to Kunti Mata and says, Attai. Kada? Attai. Atta. Telugu lo evandi? Atta. In Kannadadalli? Atte. Malayalatte? Attai. Then Hindi? Bua. 5 over now. Now he said Bua, Attai, Atta, Attige, everything. Now she said, Krishna, what will I do now? Tell me. Krishna said, Mata, earlier there was a lady called Marisha who married 10 men called Prachetas. She married 10. There was another lady called Jatila who married 7. She is lucky. It is neither 10 nor 7, it is only 5. And she is all the more lucky. The mother-in-law is 1. One mother-in-law only she has to manage. 10 bhi nahi hai, 7 bhi nahi hai, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. So it is only 5. Shadi kar. Now Draupadi said, how can I marry? Because any Purohita will get confused. Mantra will be invalid. That is when Krishna gave one shortcut. He said, you have emerged from the fire. You marry Yudhishthira and walk into the fire and come back. That time you will be Draupadi 2.0. Then you can marry Bhima. Go back, come, marry Arjuna. Go back, come. So you will be 5 Draupadis. You are not the same person. So she ended up marrying 5 men. Now she goes and falls at the feet of her mother-in-law. In those days it was a paddhati. So she goes and falls at the feet of Kunti. Kunti has to give some advice. Some advice you have to give, right? Kunti says, Yathendrani Harihaye, my dear daughter-in-law Draupadi, Yajnaseni, I have undergone a lot in my life because I was born as Pritha to my father. One fine day, my father thought that his friend Kunti Bhoja Maharaja doesn't have children and he gave me in adoption to him. I had to adjust to the new environment. By the time I realized that I was Kunti, I was given in marriage to Pandu. In that, there is one small problem that she underwent which she doesn't say. She mothered a child as well. and had to abandon that child called Karna. Then she said, I married Pandu. 1 week after marriage, he said, I will go on an expedition. When he returned, he brought another lady. Her name was Madri. By the time we wanted to begin family, we realized we could not do it the normal way. By the time we produced children and raised them, those two people died. When we went to Hastinapura, multiple attempts were made to kill my children, including poisoning the food of Bhima and putting us into a palace filled with inflammable materials so that it could be burnt in the middle of the night without taking our cognizance. We have undergone a lot in my life, Beti. Whatever I have undergone, you should not undergo. Look at the maturity of Kunti. That is what makes Mahabharata special. Why do you need Insta? Pot. Yathendrani harihaye swaha chaiva vibhavaso rohini cha yatha some damayanti yatha nade yatha vaishravane bhadra vasishthe chapyarundhati yatha narayane lakshmi tatha tvam mama bhartushu. She blessed. Now they had returned to Hastinapura. Already a prayer meeting was conducted by Duryodhana that they were all dead. I miss Yudhishthira so immensely. We were extremely close. And I truly bless my brother. As he shed tears, Shakuni came and wiped. Itna ro mat. Thoda zyada ho raha hai. Duryodhana. So all that prayer meeting was over. Now Duryodhana was thinking he is the monarch and he is going to be the heir apparent. Suddenly these 5 people come. That's all. Today he really started crying. He didn't need glycerin. Oh, Anna has come. Bhaiya wapas ho gaye. That is when Bhishma said, it is not worthy of letting these children fight anymore. Partition your property and give whatever is their right share. Dhritarashtra did not want to give, but he was only a caretaker king. So he consulted with his real estate developers. And the real estate developers said, there is one useless land that we possess. It is filled with snakes and thorns. That place is called Khandavam. Let us give that Khandava Prastham to these people. When it was given, Yudhishthira felt slightly bad. He said, "Ye kaisa land diye hain hame?" But Krishna said, don't think like that. Whatever you've got in your life, learn to make the best out of it. Don't keep cribbing. We can make this Khandava Vanam very good. That is when Arjuna and Krishna, they maybe it is upset with my rendition today. So, now they left Arjuna and Krishna and they went around the Khandava Vanam. You remember on day 1, Kanakadhara Stotram, Shishanga Vishannau Vihanga Shishau Vishanne. While explaining that line, I spoke about a bird, a rishi called Mandapala, who became Sharangika birds. You remember? That incident happens. Then you see this Khandava Vana Dahanam. I don't know, when I've spoken in detail for 60 hours on Mahabharatam on the first 4 parvas in Tamil. I wish I get an opportunity to speak in English someday. You will know the details of Mahabharata. Lot of things happen in this Khandava Vana Dahanam, burning of the Khandava Vana. Towards the end of the Dahanam, Krishna invites Indra, and Indra, with the help of Maya, constructs a beautiful city, smart city for the Pandavas. He was the politician of those days. He wanted to take credit for everything, whatever is happening. So what he intelligently did was, he said Khandava Vanam should be known after me. So Khandava Prastham became Indra Prastham. So Indraprastha was formed. It was a beautiful sabha. In that sabha, all of the kings were invited because the Rajasuya Yajna was performed. Again, I'm not getting into the details. Rajasuya Yajna is where you have to win the monarchs either through friendship or fight. That is when Jarasandha Yuddham happens. Jarasandha dies. Magadha dynasty is released of this tyrant king, and various women who have been, there was trafficking in the women trafficking that happened in the prisons of Magadha, they are all released. So towards the end of it, this Rajasuya Yajna, a beautiful ceremony is conducted in Indraprastha. All of them are invited. Duryodhana comes, Dushyasana comes, Karna comes, Shakuni comes. In that list, Shishupala also comes. Shishupala is related to Krishna the same way Arjuna is related. He is another aunt's son. Obba Attige Magano, Arjuna, Atte Magano. The other Atte Magano is Shishupala. One loved, the other one hated. Shishupala refused to accept Krishna. In that Sabha Mantapam, when that Rajasuya was conducted, towards the end of it, Agra Puja had to be performed. The first respect, in Tamil we call it Mudal Mariyadai. There is one movie also. So Mudal Mariyadai, whom to give, that is when the overlived person in the Sabha Mantapam was Bhishma. Bhishma was told, "Aap le lijiye." But Bhishma refused and said, age is not a factor. If at all there is one person who is blemishless and resplendent and the repository of all Kalyana Gunam, it is Krishna. Do puja to him. Pandavas were, of course, elated. Sahadeva said he brought that thali and then he placed it before Krishna. He had to do that respects to Krishna. When Krishna was being respected, somebody stood up and said, "This abactor, this cattle thief who has spent his entire childhood lying and stealing and dancing with the women in the middle of the night by the flowing waters of Yamuna, today is being accorded this respect. He doesn't deserve this respect. Throw him away." They turned, it was Shishupala. He started reprimanding Krishna, abusing Krishna. He abused Krishna to such an extent that Duryodhana felt bad. Duryodhana, बहुत ज़्यादा हो रहा है. शिशुपाल थोड़ा कम कर लो. Blood was coming, blood, same blood. ये क्या है? Everybody was agitated. Shakuni felt bad. ये क्या बोल रहा है शिशुपाल? थोड़ा कम करो. Too much it is. That is when Krishna was very cool. Huh? Yeah, continue. Balarama said, "What a shameless man you are. He is abusing you and you are smiling." "No, bhaiya, counting." "Oh, kya count hai? I have promised my paternal aunt that I will forgive her son of 100 abuses per day. One day quota is 100. I will. So in some days he'll abuse 67, 47. The count will vary. Today he went on and on and on. He was on a spree. The last count came. When the last 100th abuse was over, his head fell off. Chakra had done its work. It was a Graha Pravesham, housewarming ceremony. It became a crime scene. His one body was lying there, head was lying there, blood splashed. Immediately agencies came, they started taking samples. They were drawing that with a chalk piece, they were putting around that body. They were recording the time of death, all this. Suddenly, Graha Pravesham scene became a Sherlock Holmes. We don't know what happened. No, if somebody could have said, right, this is wrong of you to have done. Nobody opened because Chakram was still there. Nobody opened them all. Yudhishthira said, "Chautu." No. This is where we have one anecdote. When Chakra returned, it tore Krishna's finger. So what did Draupadi do? She tore her pallu and she tied it. All this is not there in the Mahabharata. Okay, this tying of pallu, Rupa Ganguly did. Chopra, she did. We are Chopra. But in the original Mahabharata, this blood coming there, then she realized that, then she took that, she applied some Dettol, nothing is there. It is all not there. Why did they come up with this new theory? Because their belief was, if Krishna has to later supply sari, she must have supplied sari before. Is this a barter system? When you request Bhagavan, Paramatma to help, does it mean, can you even demand, I broke 2 coconuts for you yesterday, make my son pass in thermodynamics? For that the son has to study. Coconuts is not going to serve the purpose. Pulla padikama na thengai odaikirenna avan pulla pulla mentally potuvan appada padi. So all this is not there. Now don't tell me nahi humne Mahabharat mein dekha tha ki ek to sari ki piece thi. Keep that aside. Learn how to unlearn things wrongly that we have. That is an art. Learn to unlearn. Now, after this, when they stayed in Indraprastha, that is when Duryodhana goes and manipulates to his father that I fell into the waters of Indraprastha. Draupadi Nandini laughed. Draupadi did not laugh, but he manipulates. This is where parents should always be extremely cautious. You should never ever believe your children completely. You should always stand by the side of dharma, not your children. You should always take the other person's narration also into account and then give a decision. The child comes crying, "Ayyo, en kolandai pottu adichuttaale yaadadu enna povitru." Idu 4 பேர் அடிச்சுது. நம்மாத்து குழந்தை சும்மாவே இருந்துச்சு. So, our children are not that innocent. So, Dhritarashtra fell prey. Did she laugh at you? It's so bad. I was blind and people ridiculed me and my son is all this he did. Then he called Shakuni. This was Duryodhana's plan. Shakuni said, don't worry, call them for the game of dice. Gambling. So gambling was a sport. And when a Kshatriya is invited for a sport, it was mandated that he agrees, whether he is good at it or not. This invitation was sent to Indraprastha. Yudhishthira came with his brothers and Maharagni Draupadi. The day Draupadi entered Hastinapura, her period cycle, menstruation had begun. So she did not come to the Sabha Mandapam and she went into her inner apartment. Ekavastra Rajaswala. Ekavastra Rajaswala. She was tied in one piece of cloth. Ekavastra Rajaswala. The Pandavas were seated in the Sabha Mandapam. And initially when the opening remarks were made, Bhishma said, do not play. This is going to lead us to another place. Don't do it. But he was, of course, his voice was throttled and there was absolutely no significance attached to his voice. And he was made to sit. When Bhishma's voice was left unheard, it had no value. What will Vidura's voice carry? He was already a Dasiputra. Nobody respected him. Drona did not open his mouth. Now the game had to begin. And Dhritarashtra allowed. See, Dhritarashtra, that is when I explain you Dhritarashtra's role tomorrow in Bhagavad Gita, you will realize. The game had begun. As the game had begun, there are about 100 shlokas in the Sabha Parva that describe this game. What all was pawned, because you have to pawn. The players have to pawn whatever they feel is worthy of being pawned. And whoever wins gains what the person has lost. If I have pawned a chain of pearls and the person opposite me wins, he gets this chain. So, a gold chain with pearls, jars of gold coins, Ratham, women who would serve the royalty, jewelry, skilled people, 1,000 men who would serve the household, 1,000 elephants that were trained in the warfare, 1,000 horses that were trained in the warfare, Chitrarathas gifts given in Adi Parva, 10,000 rathas, 10,000 soldiers, 400 types of wealth, nidhis, 5 dronas full of gold, goats, the entire city of Indraprastha, the palace of Indraprastha were all pawned one after the other. And Shakuni won and Yudhishthira lost. There was a basic problem here. If the eldest of the Pandavas was playing here, Duryodhana should have played on the other side. But Duryodhana excused himself. I have some carpal tunnel syndrome and I wouldn't be able to play. So on my behalf, my uncle shall play. That was his ploy. Yudhishthira should have used his Rajya Buddhi there. He should have said, if your uncle is playing, let my uncle's son Krishna play on my behalf. That's all. He would have not got Bhagavad Gita. Nothing. That's all. It would have chapter closed. Bas ho gaya. Abhi, vanakkam, shubham. Bas ho gaya. Thank God he didn't say we had Bhagavad Gita. So he started playing. After losing all this material wealth, he now pawns Nakula. Shyamo yuvalo hitakshaha simhaskandho mahabhujaha nakulo glaha evaiko vidyatte mamatadhanam. I now pawn my younger brother Nakula, who has got the neck of a conch-shaped neck, whose face emanates only radiance like that of the full moon, who has got broad shoulders and who emanates nothing but valor and prowess. I now pawn him. Nakula was lost. Next he pawned Sahadeva. Sahadeva was lost. Now they were to pawn Arjuna. The entire cameras of all channels were focused on Fox, CNN, everybody. Imagine you pawn Arjuna and lose Arjuna. Arjuna will become their maid. Then people will come home and say, Arjuna, we want a photo. So Arjuna was pawned. Bhima was pawned. Finally, Yudhishthira said, I have nothing left with me. I pawn myself. Yudhishthira pawned himself. As always, he lost himself. That's all wealth, land, and brothers, they were all lost. Bas ho gaya, contest ho gaya. Then they said, now let's pack up. This is where Shakuni said, Eka vastrat vadhoni virodamana rajaswala. That wife of yours, who's draped in a single piece of cloth, menstruating today, Ekavastrat Vadhonivi Rodamana Rajaswala, the one in whom blood, she is bleeding. Pawn her. This is where Yudhishthira thought for some time. After thinking, deliberating, he pawned Draupadi. Draupadi was also lost. That is when Duryodhana said, when all that I have owned has one insignia in front of me representing my victory over it. When the 5 brothers of Pandu, the sons of Pandu, the brothers whom I have won are in front of me, kneeling down as my servants, let that maid be dragged in front of me. They send one person called Pratikramin. He goes. He doesn't enter the apartment. He stands outside and says, Maharajni, you have been called to the Sabha. She tells, how can I come? Already I am bleeding. this is not the right time for me to be there present. What forces the king to call me? That time Pratikrama says, the king has not called you, Duryodhana has called. She asks, who is Duryodhana to call me? I am the Maharajni of Indraprastha. He says, you don't own it anymore. Why don't I own it anymore? Then he narrates all that which has happened in the Sabha. He says that everything was lost, the brothers were lost. Finally, Yudhishthira pawned himself and lost himself and then pawned him. She now asks, if he has owned everything and pawned them and lost them and finally pawned himself and lost himself to the game, how can a person who's already lost and is a slave own something else and pawn it? He cannot pawn me now because he doesn't possess. If you believe that I was worthy of being pawned, on what Shastric basis can a lady be pawned? Go ask him that. Pratikramin comes. He says, Madam has raised a legal point. Duryodhana pulls and slaps him on his face. That lady who is a maid has the audacity to question me? Dushasana, you are the right person. Pull her to the Sabha. Ekavastra tvadhoni virodamana rajasvala sabham agamya panchali shvashurasya grato bhava. Let her come and present herself to her father-in-law. Dushasana goes, barges into her antahpuram, pulls her by the hair and she tumbles. He starts pulling her with all might on the floor. As she is pulled over the stairs, there is blood strewn on the floor. She is held and dragged and pulled with bruises all over her body. She is pushed in the middle of the Sabha. She now goes to her father-in-law and asks, from birth you are blind, but are you also deaf to my cries? Am I not your daughter-in-law? This man has insulted me and you still sit and watch. Dhritarashtra does not say a word. He keeps quiet. He stays quiet. She asks Bhishma, Swami, your Ganga Putra, your Gangeya, your mother sanctifies the world. Look, a lady in your clan is suffering in front of your eyes. Why should this happen to me? That time Bhishma says, there is a point here, Ma, that some Shastric verses may seem to state that the husband may own the wife. I am doubtful how to interpret it. She now moves to Drona and she says, Swami, Acharya, you and my father have studied together. All your vengeance should have gone the day when Arjuna fetched my father for you. Today, am I not like Ashwatthama to you? Shouldn't you stand for justice? He puts his head down. So does Kripa. Vidura says, Mata, I have fought your case so well, but who respects my word, Mata? Nobody respects. What do I do? Then she asks in the Sabha, if there is not one person who can speak for me, one out of Gandhari's sons called Vikarna stands and says, this is wrong, Duryodhana. She is the daughter-in-law of the house, sister-in-law to us, and in a way Gandhari's sthanam to us do not do. Of course, his words are not respected. That is when all the Pandavas stay quiet and all the men there. That is when she cries helplessly. Karna stays. Asyaha sabham anayanam cha chitramiti mematihi ekarambhada ratvam vapyathavapi vivastrata. My dear friend Duryodhana, now that you have had the pleasure of bringing her to the sabha, I ask you, how does it matter if she has a cloth on her or without it? Who says? Karna. In the last 30 years, the only thing we have done is we have made a hero out of this man. Karan to itna acha hai, coffee show kar leta hai, Suryaputra Karan. Not worthy. You read, if you believe that Mahabharata was written by Vyasa and not B.R. Chopra, trust me, Karna is not a positive character. Oh, he was generous. Even if I had wealth, I would have been generous. That doesn't give you the license to strip a woman naked. After having said this, Karna deserves not an iota of your respect. He said, how does it matter if she's draped in one cloth or she's stripped out of it? Ekambaradva. Duryodhana says, that's a good thought. And he says, Dushyasana, take it. She's just draped in one piece of cloth. She's already bruised, bleeding. That second, she thinks of Vasishtha Vakyam. Vasishtha had advised earlier. Jnatam maya vasisthena puragitam mahatmana mahatyapti samprapte smartavyo bhagavan harihi. Vasishtha has said, in your life, whenever you feel extremely left out, that there is nobody to help you, at that point in time, smartavyo bhagavan harihi, when you feel nobody will come to your rescue, at that moment you think of Narayana, he will come. Smartavyo bhagavan harihi. She remembered Vasishtha Vakyam and she held her piece of cloth, and then she thought to herself, hey Krishna, my dear friend, you have been my companion all along. But today, unfortunately, you are not in this Sabha Mandapam. You would have never let this happen to your dear friend. Wherever you are, He Dheyasada Savitrimandala Madhyavati. Shastram says that you are in the middle of Surya Mandala. He Paramatma Bhagavat Shabda Mukhyashrayosi Dheyasada Savitrimandala Madhyavati. Every time a person gives arghya, he sees Surya Narayana seated as the Antaryami in Savitrimandalam. Dheyasada Savitrimandala Madhyavarti. He Bhagavan Naranam Ayanam Yasya Saha. You are the one who carries the Chetana and Achetana as your Shariram. He Narayana Dheyasada Savitrimandala Madhyavarti. Narayana, you are seated in the beautiful lotus, Sarasijasanaha. You have got a face that is akin to the blossoming lotus in the morning. You have got eyes that are akin to the petals of a lotus. He Dheyasada Savitrimandala Madhyavati. Narayana Sarasijasana Sannivishtaha. Keyuravan, you hold all these beautiful abharanams. Makarakundalavan, Kiriti, Hari, Hiranmayavapuhu, Samavedam, Chandogyopanishad says, from head to toe, you are as resplendent as molten gold. He Dwaraka Nilayachute, He Krishna, Dheyasada, Savitrimandala, Madhyavati, Narayana, Sarasijasana, Sannivishtaha, Keyuravan, Makarakundalavan, Kiriti, Hari, Hiranmaya, Vapuhu, Apranaghat, Sarvayeva Suvarnaha, Hiranyasmashruhu, Hiranyakeshaha, Tasya Yatha, Tapyasam, Pundarikam, Evamakshini, He Paramatma, He Bhagavan, He Shadgunya Paripurna, Jnanabala, Ishwarya Veeri, Shakti Tejas Samchukaihi. You are the one who holds all these sugunas. He Bhagavan, Dheyasada, Savitrimandala, Madhyavati, Narayana, Sarasijasana, Sannivishtaha, Keyuravan, Makarakundalavan, Kiriti, Hari, Hiranmayavapuhu, Dhrita, He Krishna, you hold a chakram in your hand, you hold a shankham in your hand. Once when the crocodile was catching the elephant's foot, that time the elephant cried for its help. That time, Shastram says, you sat on the Vedatma Vihageshwaraha Garuda and protected that elephant with the chakra. Is that chakram only your abharanam, or is it still your ayudham? With that ayudham called as chakram, can't you protect me? With that shankham, you raised that voice and protected that little boy called as Dhruva. For Dhruva and Gajendra, you came with Shankha Chakram. When Draupadi calls, won't you come? He Dheyas Sada Savitrimandala Madhyavati Narayana Sarasijasana Sannivishtaha Keyuravan Makarakundalavan Kiriti Hari Hiranmaya Vapuhu Dhritashanka Chakraha. When that Astram Dharicha, the one who holds the Astram, is called Astri. When this Stri calls, can't that Astri come? Dheyas Sada Savitrimandala Madhyavati Narayana Sarasijasana Sannivishtaha Keyuravan Makarakundalavan Kiriti Hari Hiranmaya Vapuhu Dhritashanka Chakraha. Krishna, today in this avataram, you may be staying in Dwaraka, which is miles away. Dwaraka Nilaya, hey Krishna, but when Rukmini wrote a letter to you, she called you as the one who never abandons. Achyuta, Dwaraka Nilaya Achyuta. Krishna, you protected the cows and calves and earned the name Govinda. You don't have to see me as a human. Treat me as a cow and come and protect me. Dwaraka Nilayachyuta Govinda, the one whose eyes are as compassionate as the nectar dripping petals of a newly blossomed lotus. Dwaraka Nilayachyuta Govinda Kundarikaksha. Krishna, your eyes smell and give only mercy. Those mercy-laden eyes, wherever they are, have to see its devotee. Am I just not your devotee? I am your friend as well. Dwaraka Nilayachyuta Govinda Pundarikaksha Rakshamam. Krishna, I have nobody around me to protect me. You are the only one who can protect me. Dwaraka Nilayachyuta Govinda Pundarikaksha Rakshamam Sharanagatam. She put her palms above. And this is the interpretation. Whatever I have cited is a 40-page commentary by a great commentator called Swami Periyavachan Pillai of the 12th century. He writes 40 pages of commentary on this shloka. Dwaraka Nilayachyuta Govinda Pundarikaksha Rakshamam Sharanagatam. That vastram which had gone between the jaws, she finally said, I should not put any more efforts, and she put her palms above. When Krishna was there in the Yuddham with Shalva in Dwaraka, he heard the cry of Draupadi. That is when Alvar says, Thirumangai Alvar says, look at Alvar's, Nalayara Divi Prabandham is a treasure trove. Thirumangai Alvar says, Krishna wanted to help her. He wanted to give clothes to her. He had nothing. He wanted to supply clothes. For that you need threads. Then only you can weave them together, loom it together and send. Where will he get the threads from? Alvar says, Krishna thought the Mangalya Sutram of the 100 Kaurava Patnis will not be required anymore. And he took the threads from their Mangalya Sutram, made a beautiful sari and sent it seems. Andagan Shirvan Arasartam Arasar Kilaivan Anilayin Shendra Yendamar Kurimai Shaya Yanadariar Yamdaruman Arula Yenna Sandam Alpudalargal Alakan Nuchuvartam Pendirum Yeri Nol Ilaipa Indiran Shirvan Termun Nindrani Tiruvallikeni Kandene, says Alvar of Triplicane. It's a beautiful kshetra in Chennai. He's called Partha Sarathi. A beautiful kshetra. And the clothes came. How did Acharya says? It came like waves of compassion. Krishna was not there. One Acharya says, one is Nama, Krishna Nama. The other one is Krishna, who's the Nami, who holds that Nama. Krishna, the Nami, was not there. What gave her sari and compassion was not Krishna, it was his Nama. Abattile Pudavai Shurandadu Tirunama Mire Sabhavich Krishna Krishna Draupadi Pukari Itne mein hariya gaye Sab anhar chhod gaye Surdas dware thado. Surdas says that second when she surrendered complete Sharanagati to Bhagavan, to her Antaratma, she was just protected. That 1 second of mistake of Dhritarashtra to not check his children cost him when all his sons died in front of him. Not one was left. That anugraham Draupadi had. Then there is one beautiful anecdote when we read in Sri Vaishnava Sampradayam. We have to read 4 granthas under an acharya. It is called Sri Bhashyam, Gita Bhashyam, Rahasyatrayasaram and Bhagavad Vishayam, which is called Tiruvazhmozhi. 1,000 plus verses in chaste Tamil of Nammalvar and 8 commentaries to it. We have to learn for 3 years. In one of the sentences, there's a beautiful line. The student asks the teacher, that's the anecdote. She did not have one. She had 5 husbands, all great warriors. The student asks the teacher, when she was in distress, why didn't she call out the name of her husband? She should have said, Yudhishthira! She didn't call out. She called Krishna. He's 1,450 kilometers away in Dwaraka. In Vande Bharat, it will take 6 hours. Why did she call out? The Acharya says, it is in ancient Tamil. Nenu anuvadam chestanu. Bhartavin kaiyai pidittukkondu patniyanavள் panthaiyil nadakkumbodhu kallidarinal amme ennuma pole. When the husband and wife walk together in the evening in the garden, and in case the lady's foot tumbles on a stone, it meets a stone, and she is in distress and she has to cry in help, she will not cry out her husband's name. She will say, Amma! Right? Amma is there in Lakeview Road, Westmambal. Amma will take at least 26 hours to come in Lufthansa. She will take at least 28 hours to come in British Airways without the luggage because it will come later. So, but she cries out her mother's name. Her husband is named Suresh! Suresh is her husband. She is in distress. Suresh! She will not call out the name who gives pain. So, that is why the Acharya says, Bhartavin kaiyai patni pidittukkondu kal idarinal amme ennuma pole, because she saw Krishna as her mother. Bhakta janavatsale Vitale Bhakta janavatsale Keshiraje Keshiraje Bhakta janavatsale annayai attanai ennai aandidum tanmayan. Later Krishna comes in Vanaparva. Then he says, Draupadi, this should have not happened. That time Draupadi says, Krishna, had it not been you and your name, who would have protected me? Krishna says, picture baki hai Draupadi. Whoever was present in that sabha witnessing your humiliation, I promise you, none of them will survive. I promise that I will get them all done. Then he walked as a messenger to me. He later became a messenger. He said, I want peace. Let the war end. He never wanted the war to end. So, he said, let you see what is happening. Krishna's friendship with Draupadi is so tight. You have to read Mahabharata to understand what relationship they enjoyed. That I will tell you tomorrow, one relationship. Beautiful. It comes in Udyoga Parva. Now, how much did he like Draupadi as a friend? Towards the end of Krishna Avataram, when Yuddham is over, Yudhishthira is ruling, everything is fine, Bhishma is no more, Krishna has to leave Bhumandalam, he calls his friend Uddhava. And he tells Uddhava, my avataram is over. That time, Uddhava says, Bhagavan, in this avataram, has your objective been achieved? Whatever objective have you come, is it fulfilled? Krishna says, yes, but I am still indebted. I'm having a certain debt. Uddhavas. Why? Generally, if you have debt, you go to UK. They borrow you go, kya hua? Bolo? Krishna said that one day, in the middle of the sabha, that lady who is my friend, she had nobody around her who could help her. She was in distress, but she put her full confidence on me and she knew that I will help her. She cried out Govinda. For that one name that she cried out, Uddhava, I think I have not done enough. Rinam pravriddham, I am carrying the burden that I have not done enough for my friend. That even when Krishna left to Vaikuntham, Draupadi was in his mind. Then imagine what a character she is. She has amazed all our composers. Meera says, Hari tumharo janaki bheed Draupadi ki लाज राखी तुम बढ़ाओ चीर हरि तुम्हारो जन की भीड़. Tyagaraja Swami, 250 years back, he tells Rama, come and show mercy on me. Rama said, why? What's so special, Tyagaraja, with you? Why should I come to Thiruvayadu and bless you? Tell me. That is when Tyagaraja says, hey Rama, that day for your dear wife come friend called Sita, didn't you construct a setu and go to Lanka? What could Rama have done? Sita, wherever you are, I'll miss you a lot. Stay safe. Drive safe. I'll miss you loads. Let's stay in touch. He could have said, Sita gayi to Gita hai. He could have come, he could have followed his father's paddhati. But for that one lady, he constructed a bridge. Tyagaraja says, for that lady whom you loved as your wife and friend, you constructed a bridge, Rama. वो बहुत पुराना है, Tyagaraja. Rama, later in Mahabharata Kalam, Dwapara Yugam, when your friend Draupadi cried for help, didn't you send her saris? तब मेरे पास बहुत था, इसलिए मैंने भेजा. तुम क्या पूछ रहे हो, त्यागराज? Rama, forget about Treta and Dwapara Yugam. 200 years back, Tyagaraja is 250 years before us. 200 years before him, he says, didn't you release Ramadasa from the Golconda fort, from Tanasha? Oh, you know that. अच्छा, तुम्हें पता है क्या? ఇలా తెలుసు? ఈనాడు టీవీలో చెప్పారు. తెలియలేదా మీకు? Look at Tyagaraja's Sahityam. నారీమణికి చీరలిచ్చినది నాడేనే విన్నానుర రమా ధీరుడౌ రామదాసుని బంధము తీర్చినది విన్నానుర రమా నీరజాక్షికై నీరధి దాటిన నీ కీర్తిని విన్నానుర రమా తారక నామ త్యాగరాజనుత దయతో నేలుకోరా రమా క్షీర సాగర శయనా. Tyagaraja quotes Draupadi. Surdas, Meera, Tyagaraja, Muthuswami Dikshita, Alvas, who has not quoted her? That Draupadi was the topic of this day. So we now conclude and pay our obeisances to the Draupadi Mata, the Patni of Panchapandavas, the daughter-in-law to Kunti, the daughter of Drupada, the sister of Drishtadyumna. Nothing is her ornament. She is the friend of Krishna. That one is her tiara, and to the one who sports the tiara of being the closest friend of Krishna, Sakshat Paramatma, I pay my obeisances. And tomorrow we are going to meet yet for another topic, the fourth day, the one day that you have to bear with me. For one day I will be purukable. So that topic is Bhagavad Gita tomorrow. Kavita Simhaya Kalyana Gunashaline Srimate Venkateshaya Vedanta Gurave Namaha Swasti Prajabhyah Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahimahishaha Go Brahmanebhyah Shubhamastu Nityam Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Kayena Vacha Manasendriyaiva Buddhyatmana Va Prakriti Svabhavat Karomi Yadyat Sakalam Parasmai Shriman Narayana Samarpayami Janaki Kanta Smaranam. I told you while explaining Drona, he had fatigue. Energy. Janaki Kanta Smaranam. Our Talevar says, right, Suma Adhirdilla. Gopika Jeevana Smaranam.